Hey everybody, Pastor Todd here, coming to you on a rainy Thursday. So forgive me for not posting yesterday. I got the COVID booster on Tuesday, and to quote Billy Ray Cyrus, I was achy breaky. But we're back. It's April 7th, or the 32nd day of Lent, and I'll be reading to you from Wondrous Encounters by Father Richard Rohr. I'm going to read the full text again of the scriptures that he uses. We're going to be reading Genesis 17:3 through 9 and John 8:51 to 59, and then I'll read his reflection. So Genesis 7:3 through 9. I'm sorry, it's Genesis 17:3 through 9 reads, Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, As for me, this is my covenant with you. You shall be the ancestor of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the ancestor of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and your offspring after you throughout their generations, for an everlasting covenant to be God to you and to your offspring after you. And I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land where you are now an alien, all the land of Canaan for the perpetual holding, and I will be their God. God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout their generations. Now on to John. This is John 8:51 to 59. John 8:51 to 59. Very truly I tell you, whoever keeps my word will never see death. The Jews said to him, Now we know that you have a demon. Abraham died, so did the prophets. Yet you say, Whoever keeps my word will never taste death. Are you greater than your father Abraham, who died? The prophets also died. Who do you claim to be? Jesus answered, If I glorify myself, my glory is nothing. It is my Father who glorifies me, he of whom you say he is our God. Though you do not know him, but I know him. If I would say that I do not know him, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him, and I keep his word. Your ancestor Abraham rejoiced that he would see my day. He saw it and was glad. Then the Jews said to him, You are not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham? Jesus said to them, Very truly I tell you, before Abraham was, I am. So they picked up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. And here is the reflection. It's entitled, All Glory is Reflected Glory. In the first reading from Genesis, we have an encounter between Yahweh and Abraham when he is 99 years old. It is a third time repeat of his first call, each time adding a few new elements to the meaning of their relationship or covenant. But one thing that does not change is that although the relationship is totally initiated and invited from God's side, it is still a bilateral covenant. There is always a bit more of a requirement expected from Abraham each time. Leaving his country and family, the sacrifice of animals, and here there will be required circumcision and belief that he will have a son, at which both he and his wife, Sarah, laugh. The God-human relationship must start bilaterally. It is the only way to get us into the boxing ring. It is the only way to hold us still in one place long enough so the beginnings of the give and take relationship can happen. But it is not the final goal. Many, if not most, never get beyond religion as requirements. What does your religion require of you? Is that wrong in your denomination? It is the question of the rich young man. What must I do to inherit eternal life? Since all human relationships are bilateral. least of all the parent-child. We tend to structure all our experiences that way. In other words, we are almost totally unprepared for God, unless we know how a perfect parent might love a child, unilaterally. Gradually, as the Hebrew people are continually unfaithful to initial Abrahamic covenant, we will see that it becomes more and more unilateral from Yahweh's side. Really quite wonderful. God does it all, whether or not we cooperate at all. I would not believe it myself if I did not read the successive covenants with Noah, David, and of course what Jeremiah predicts, and what we eventually call the new covenant with Jesus. Each succeeding time, God, in effect, says, I might as well let you in on the big secret. I do it all anyway. Jesus becomes the living icon of that new and everlasting covenant, where God does all the loving and we do all the receiving. It is symbolized every time we hand out the cup of blood to you and say the new and everlasting covenant. This gives you a foundation and background with which to read the gospel today. Jesus himself stands in right relationship with his Father and receives all his glory from him. It is a fully reflected glory and therefore unwavering, constant, infinite, and vigilant source. This is exactly the eternal life that he speaks of here, and then even tells us we can have it too. So you see the sequencing. Jesus perfectly reflects God's glory given from the Father. Then we are invited to receive and reflect that same glory which is reflected from Jesus. It is all a reflection received, a glory given, inherent, and unilateral gift from God's side. Remember, we are not talking about the psychological or moral worthiness here. We are talking about metaphysical identity, our true self, which is our birthright from God. We humans are always unwhole, but we still receive and can ever more perfectly reflect our divine unity and identity in God. This is the great I am, which Jesus claims at the very end of today's gospel. And yet, because they refuse to see it in themselves or in him, they throw rocks at him. It is not just hating him, but is an expression of their own self-hatred. Read the passage below, which is so central and crucial for understanding that I will add my commentary within the text. So read snippets of John 8, 51, 54, and 55. If I glorify myself, that glory means nothing. Eternal life is not self-generated. He who gives me the glory is the Father, the very one you claim is your God. It is a mere verbal affirmation. But you do not know him. You do not allow or trust a reflection of God's glory in yourself. But I, being Jesus, know him. I allow and believe the reflection fully. If I said I do not know him, I would be no better than you, a liar. Jesus is not being cruel here. He is saying that they are telling an untruth by denying their divine identity. We do know him, reflect him, and even have eternal life now, but we refuse to see it, and in that sense, we are all liars. Thanks for joining me on this rainy Thursday. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and remember to pray for someone, specifically that they continue to have, even though we're getting close to Easter, they continue to have a meaningful Lenten journey.